To be honest, is the pod going up? To be honest, sit down, we need to have a talk. Cornelius gon' make a point that the others don't. Them other shows sound the same, come escape the box. Expand your mind, dig into no controversial topics. He ain't scared to keep it real. Tune into this podcast, but don't be in your feelings. We gon' have a laugh, we gon' talk about some pain. Let's talk about the present situation of today. To be honest, is this the podcast? I need to tune in right now.
Yo, what's up? This is your boy Cornelius, Lindsey, and I am super excited to have you back for another episode of To Be Honest. And y'all know this month we're dealing with mental health awareness. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I wanted to have an opportunity to sit down with someone who I feel like you have an amazing story to tell. And I want you to introduce yourself. I know you start a nonprofit to really speak to mental health and kind of give everybody the information they need.
Okay, well, hello out there to your whole audience. My name is Brian Patrick. I started a nonprofit. It's called Beyond Broken. Actually, I didn't
that microphone.
Squeeze real close. I gotta get real intimate with it. Actually, I didn't start it myself. The story that really exists behind that is my wife was dealing with mental illness, and we started it together in February of 2019. We actually started it about 13 days before she committed suicide. Yeah. So when we finally got our paperwork from the government, less than 2 weeks later, she passed away. So I didn't start it. I'm carrying it on, basically.
So I want to say this, if you're listening to this right now, and we're going to talk about some things, if suicide, depression, all those things are triggering for you, then I want you to be able to make that assumption and saying, or make that decision and saying, hey, this is something I want to listen to or not. These are conversations we need to have, because these are the conversations like this is happening. It's happening in our world. It's happening around us. So, but again, if any of this is triggering to you, then, by all means, skip this one, go to the next one, but we're going to talk about it. Could you kind of give me the backstory to your wife and what was going on, and kind of give us an updated view of what did that look like? What did you guys walk through together?
Whew, that's a mouthful, I'll tell you that much. My wife dealt with anxiety and depression for her whole life. I mean, she had a tragic backstory. Her father was in the military, had her young. Her father and her mother had her when they were 16 and 18. He went over to the military to take care of his new family. By the time she was 2, they were living in Germany, and he went to go help a friend who had gotten drunk and climbed up a light pole one night. He climbed up to get him and was electrocuted. He passed away. Her dad passed away when she was 2 years old, while her mom was pregnant with her brother. So they moved back to the States, and she was like 4 or 5 years old. They moved back to the States. She ends up living with her mother's new boyfriend, who molests her from the ages of 4 until 16 or 17.
4 until 16 or 17.
Yes. So
that's most of
all of her
adolescence. That's like all of adolescence, teenage, everything.
Yes. So very bad situation there. Her mother, we believe, dealt with anxiety and depression too. When she was 16 years old, she went to school to take her finals. She came home, opened the garage, found that her mother had committed suicide. She was the person who found her.
At what age?
16. Her mother was 32 at the time. So fast forward, strangely enough, they died at the same age. So my wife was 12 days. It was 12 days before her 32nd birthday when she passed away. So she would have been the exact same age as her mother. I say all that to say that there was a lot that goes into even talking about when we finally met, because she had that trauma with her that entire time of her life. So when we met when we were in our early 20s, and it was progressively worse as the years got on, and as everybody knows, the older you get, the more life gets complicated.
Yeah.
The more you have to deal with, and the harder it is to deal with if you have a mental illness that is making it, tough for you. So, what it looked like on a day-to-day basis really depends on the year. That last year of her life, I was less of a husband and more of a caretaker at that point. She could only go to work. After that, she'd take pills and couldn't get out of bed, So, it was mainly me watching her deteriorate that last year and trying to make sure that I tried to get her to those right doctors and tried to get her to, the right space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, it was tough, but there's a lot of lessons that can be learned that I hope to share to your audience today with that.
And I definitely want to get to those lessons. You mentioned something though. You mentioned that the last year of your marriage, you were less of a husband and more of a caretaker.
Yes.
And I feel like, at some point in kind of everybody's relationship, that role kind of evolves. Like, you grow from just being the husband to just be kind of laughing, having fun to now somebody's taking care of somebody else. But what
you normally want to do that when you get old and gray though.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not when you're your prime. But I want to ask you this: while she was going through everything she was going through, where were you at mentally?
That's probably one of the best questions I've ever been asked, to be honest with you, because see that? Yeah, asking good questions. I still ask myself that. It's been 428 days since she passed. My therapist says I shouldn't be counting those days.
Right.
But that's where I'm at mentally, is that I don't know if I'll ever not be her husband.
Wow.
And so she's gone. It's almost like I'm waiting for her to come back. It's been 428 days. She's still my wife. The mental struggle for being your young wife's caretaker, is that there's a part of you that always knows that this could go really bad. And I could be everything that I've created in my mind and in my house and in my heart and in my spirit could be gone. And so that's what you have to juggle in that situation. And mentally, it's really tough. You have to, the first bit of advice I would give anybody out there, if you are out there and you're dealing with this, do not do it alone, because who do you talk to when things get rough right now?
Yeah.
Your wife, right? How can you can't put that burden on them.
Yeah.
You can't carry that yourself. And what I was doing that year is I was trying to carry that myself for most of the year. And it's tremendously tough. And there's no badges of honor for being tough out here. You need to get help.
Yeah.
And it's not when somebody you're dealing with needs that help, you need to also make some time for yourself to get yourself that help you need to, so you can be a good caretaker to them.
So, man, one of the things that, we always hear with the advice, which I agree with and I also preach, and that is, don't do it alone.
Yes.
I think people hear that, and I think people have heard it so much. I'm not going to generalize everybody, but there are a group of people who hear that, don't do it alone. And it becomes extremely difficult for them to understand because of the issue of trust. It's like, well, who can I trust you with these deep, feelings that I have?
Yes.
And then if I somehow open up to you, how will you view me after I open up to you? It's like that. It's like the hero complex. It's like, well, I'm the hero.
And now I've laid myself bare. Yes.
And I've shown you Clark Kent.
Yes.
So will you still respect me as Superman when I, unveil the S underneath my suit?
Well, I'm not that big of a comic book guy, but I'll tell you this. I know that Lois loves Clark.
Come on. Yeah. That's good.
She loves Clark. But in our predicament, I'm going to take it back to me and my wife, and I wanted to talk to people. It's like, no, this is what's happening in our house. And what I learned then and throughout the grieving process is that you've got to trust your friends to be your friends. Wow. You got to give them that opportunity. If they don't know what's going on at all, how can they help? You know? You're just alone for no reason. You got to trust them. What you'll find is, oh, I can't trust that person. I'm surprised I can trust this person. Wow. And you'll find who will be there for you. But if you don't give your friends a chance and you don't give your family a chance to be there for you, it's not even fair to them, not just for yourself. So don't go at it alone, because nobody's strong enough to handle this kind of stuff by yourself. But at the same token, you know, that hero complex has got to be something you throw away. You gotta be bare. You gotta be vulnerable, because people know something's going on. You just didn't tell them what it was.
Yeah. I love something you just said. You said, I know that Lois loves Clark.
Yes.
Because the world loves Superman.
Exactly.
But Lois loved Clark.
I think people make this mistake with relationships. Mm-hmm. Everyone thinks that marital relationships are this special, different thing. Mm-hmm. You right now, the world loves you as what they see. You know, the things that you're doing. Your wife loves who you really are.
Right.
You know, your mama loves who you really are. You know, your family loves who you really are. You've got to get beyond that superficial relationship with everybody else, because relationships are relationships.
Right.
And just like your wife loves you for you and Lois loves Clark, you got to give your friends a chance to love more than Superman on that.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. So y'all hear that? I mean, just this whole idea of saying you gotta trust somebody, you can't do this alone, is letting go of that S on your chest and actually being vulnerable and being honest and moving forward. So now kind of switching gears here, your wife went through a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
So how was that? How did everything that she went through, and we'll get back to the mental space here in a second, but how did everything that she went through, how did that begin to affect your relationship with her?
He's asking all the greatest questions today. I just want you to know, because that is such a layered answer.
Right.
For one, she was with a really, really bad doctor, and the medication she was getting was way off and way too much, and they did something called emotionally mute her. So we went from a loving, close as can be relationship to that last year, she was like 5 different people at any point in the year. And so it made it harder for me because I didn't know in the morning who she was going to be.
Jesus.
You know, there was a time I remember I was out of town for work, and she had been taking this medication that literally made her only feel 2 emotions: anger, sadness. Literally, like that's a literal side effect of it's called emotionally muting anger and sadness. So she was either mad all the time or she was sad all the time. And we're sitting on the phone and she says this to me. I've never told this to anybody. I think I'm telling it to you. You bring it out of me, Barbara Walters. I know in theory that I love you. Just can't feel it right now. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, okay. Well, just know this. I know I love you, and I'm going to continue until you're back. And thank God that medication went off. She came back. But imagine your wife telling you that and how that it does affect the relationship. So the fact that she had gone through so many personality changes in 1 year, it completely put a chasm in between us, right? You know, you have to still love that person, but it gets harder and harder to be who you are to somebody who's not who they are. Yeah. It's really tough. You just got to dig in.
It's interesting because you have, really two different perspectives here. Not only do you have the perspective of being up close to someone who was dealing with depression, anxiety, and all those different things, but you also have the perspective of that person who was the caretaker for someone in that position. Yeah. I think what happens is we talk a great deal, which I feel like we should do more of. We talk a great deal about, the person that's going through it.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to, with you, not necessarily the person who's going through it, your wife, but for the people who are out there who say, my spouse is going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to do. I'm losing my mind. Like, I don't know how to help. What do I do? Because we talk a lot about what we're supposed to do when it's that person. They can go get medication, go get therapy, go get those things. But, even my wife and I, we've had that conversation. My wife, she sat down with therapists and stuff like that. And she's like, well, how do I help my husband? Because depression, anxiety, all those things I've dealt with. She's like, well, what do I do for my husband? Sometimes she just doesn't know. And so what is that like?
It's okay not to. It's okay not to know. I would say while one spouse is, on medication, the other spouse should be on education. They should be trying to learn everything they can about what's going on. Like sometimes I used to go to her sessions. First ask the person, don't force yourself on any session, like any therapist session or anything.
Even married couples?
Even married couples, because you're still people and she still has, her own thoughts and feelings that maybe she don't feel comfortable sharing with you. But I asked. I wanted to know, I wanted to talk to the doctor. I wanted to understand what was going on and what I can expect. So I could ask those same questions you just said to somebody who's certified to answer that. Mm-hmm. And what I got was educate yourself, learn as much as you can about it, and just be an open, an open canvas for your wife to paint whatever she needs on you. If she needs that Superman, be that person. Mm-hmm. If she needs just somebody to kick, sometimes you get kicked. And this one is a really important one. If she needs you to leave her alone, leave her alone, those things. So all you can be is supportive. You can't be an expert. And that's all you can be. And sometimes that's all a person wants. Like, if I need to go to the doctor, I'm gonna go to the doctor. Right. If I need my husband or my wife, I'm gonna go to them for that. So there's not much you can do. And that's the tough part about it, is that there were many times I just wanted to, I'm a fixer. I just want to fix this situation. Yeah. You can't. You gotta be there for the person, be their shoulder when they need a shoulder, and do your job, take care of that person. Right.
So you have kids?
We did not, fortunately.
Did not have kids?
Did not have kids, no.
Okay. No. Wow. I mean, even to walk through that with extended family, mm-hmm. with everybody else, I mean, how did the news of her passing, how did that create a ripple effect in the family? Did that start a new conversation? What was that like?
It created a ripple effect throughout the entire community, basically. Wow. My wife worked for Starbucks, and when she passed away, they shut down every Starbucks that she worked for a day. Wow. She worked there her entire adult life from 18 when she passed. So she had worked at a lot of them. Because people needed to grieve, So, but what I'm thankful that it did is it allowed me to have those conversations with other people, mm-hmm. and it allowed other people to have those conversations with their other loved ones. So I've seen many people start going to therapy, mm-hmm. because of my wife's name was Brandy, because of Brandy's passing. I've had, I think it's three phone calls in the middle of the night of people who will not be named, who were telling me, I'm having suicidal ideation right now, thinking about, killing myself. And I've been able to talk to them and put them into the right places with the right people and get them their help. I think the only silver lining of my wife's passing is, had she not passed, there would have been others who did. There would have been others who did things. And this is always a situation where people feel, it's not me. This can't happen to me. This couldn't happen to my family. So when it happens to somebody close to you, you really understand that none of us are untouchable. Right. And mental health is not something you put on the back burner. Since she's passed away, a lot of our friends have moved on from their jobs because they were mentally taxing and they wanted to put themselves first. So it's been a lot of changes for the positive from all this.
And I always hear that. It's true. Yeah. Typically it takes, when something like that happens, especially when it's those grave circumstances, then typically it opens up the mind for everybody else. I mean, I pastored for over 8 years, and I always felt like the most powerful service was a funeral.
It's true.
Because the
It's very
funeral
true.
was the one that woke everybody up. It was like, I can get up on a Sunday morning, I can say some things. People are like, okay, I'm asleep. But in a funeral, a lot of times, especially in the Black community, we keep our Southern, I don't know if it's Southern thing, I don't know what it is. We keep that casket right in front of us. And that casket is a constant reminder of just how short life is.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you this too. So you were saying that you and your wife, you guys started a nonprofit before she died.
Yes.
Was that more of her idea? Was that your idea? I'm asking that because I kind of have somewhere to go with it.
It was definitely her idea. So there's a book that I keep of my wife's, and it had the 10 things she wanted to do before she died. Number 4 is she wanted to do something in the mental health space to help other people. Number 4 is that. I remember the conversation that we had one day where she said, "We are going through all this stuff. I wish there was a way for us to do our part, because we can survive this." And so we thought we'd open up a small nonprofit, raise a little bit of money every year, and then donate that money to another nonprofit. We would just be a fundraising arm, right? And the goal was at some point she would leave her job one day and work for that nonprofit and do that full time. So it was definitely, before all this happened, I was not the face of this kind of stuff. It was definitely her. And, she had this ability to just look at a person and she was so familiar with pain that she could see it in other people if they were hiding it. And so she could just look at you and go, that person needs me to go talk to them. That person needs this and that. And that was her gift. So no, by all means, it was not me who started that.
And the reason why I asked the question, my assumption was that it was probably something that came from her.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's C.S. Lewis who said that, in order for God to use you greatly, he must first break you deeply. And the reason why I use that particular quote is because I've seen my capacity for empathy grow and develop the more I've experienced pain.
It's very, very true. Yeah.
And pain has opened me up to a whole new realm of understanding love, grace, mercy, a lot of different things. I thought pain was all bad, and we don't want to experience it, but it definitely has an upside to it for us to be able to expand our empathy. It's interesting, though, that oftentimes it is the most broken who desire to assist and to help other people. I know as a pastor, I know other pastors who have pastored. Pastors are some of the most broken people in the world.
Yeah.
And they get into pastoring because they want to help other broken people.
Kindred spirits.
Oh yeah.
That C.S. Lewis quote is probably the best one I've heard to describe the actual process that I'd gone through.
Wow.
And it makes sense, because think about even just the way our bodies work. You lift weights, it hurts. Mm-hmm. It's because muscle fibers being broken down so they can build back bigger, right? Mm-hmm. And in life has to break you at some point so that you can appreciate it, first of all, but then, move forward. So she had a lot of that, and she was very good at finding a person who was in darkness and just giving them a little bit of her light.
Wow.
Yeah.
For the people out there who are listening who say, what would your recommendation be to those individuals who say, "Hey, I'm walking down this path and I don't know what to do"?
And is that the person who's going through it, or the caretaker?
I'll say the person who's going through it.
I've given this advice more than once. And what I would say, I guess it would harken back to when we first started today on this podcast. I said my wife had been gone for 428 days. Mm-hmm. You got to be in some real pain to count the days.
Yes.
When you're under that immense amount of pain that she must have been under, to feel like the best option is the option that she took. People who are going through it today, you got to understand what all is left behind. Mm-hmm. because I don't feel like she understood the amount of love that was there, because we didn't go into the community and take the S off our chest and say, we are hurting too. Get help as soon as you can, and not just from medical professionals, but allow those who love you to pour into you and understand that this isn't the end for you. You know, mental illness is illness. And a lot of people think it's a death sentence. It's an illness.
Yeah.
And many of those mental illnesses are treatable or manageable. And so what you're going through right now, you're only going through, it's like putting your hand on a hot stove. It's hot while your hand is on the stove. You got to take it off and then apply the medication. So the first thing is immediately, if you're feeling those thoughts, to talk to someone, talk to a professional, get some help. And the second thing is, you know, after you've done that and you've calmed off that level, is allow people to pour into you. And I guarantee you, in every person's life, there's somebody who can pour into them, who's waiting to pour into them. You know, so, you know, don't be afraid to tell people, this is where I'm at right now, because they will help.
Man, I love that you mentioned, you know, the idea of getting help. And I love something you said earlier. You said sometimes not knowing is okay.
Yeah.
Like there was one point in my marriage where, you know, I was battling, you know, suicidation, and it was like, it was bad. Right. And I remember I had to speak with a psychiatrist or psychologist, whichever wanted to. And she had essentially, she said to me, you know, I remember saying to her over the thing, you're talking to her, and I was like, I said, you know, she said, well, do you think you're sick? And I said, no, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I was like, you know, I don't feel like anything's wrong with me. I was like, I feel like these thoughts are normal. Everybody just has them. And everybody just don't talk about them. And I'm just the one who's just on here. And I feel like I was just kind of doing something to just kind of get this out of the way. And she kind of just stopped, and, you know, then we talked a bit more. And towards the end of the call, she said to me, she said, Cornelius, I want to let you know something. It's okay to admit that you're sick.
Yes.
She said, because she was saying, you know, she said, I'm quite sure you know this, but you need to admit that you're sick. And it's okay. You need to admit that there's some trauma there. You need to admit that there's some things there that need to be dealt with. But while you're dealing with those things, you're sick. She said, if you had a heart attack, you know, we're not just going to let you just leave the hospital without first checking you.
Yes.
We have to make sure that you're okay. She said, if you were to cut your hand off, we don't just walk around like something just didn't happen. She said, in the same way, when you have a cold, you take medicine. She said, Cornelius, you're sick.
Yes.
And it's okay for you just to admit you're sick, and then it's okay for you to do what you're doing now and to seek help. And I don't know what that did. It just kind of, the light bulb just kind of went off, like, you know what? I am sick.
People don't believe it. Like,
yeah, I didn't want to believe it.
The biggest problem in the Black community,
come on,
when it comes to all of this, is that we relegate mental illness to the corner. You're an other because of this. If you had cancer and you went to church, they would pray over you.
Oh yeah, they pray over you.
They would pray over you in a heartbeat, and they would keep praying after you left. You know, if you had problems in your marriage, they pray over that. Mental illness is put in the corner.
Yeah. Or you're a demon. Right. You got to have a demon in you.
Right. You got to have a demon in you. That
depression demon. I'm
right. Like, no.
It's just a chemical imbalance.
Right. Right. And think about it this way. We are the foods that we eat, right?
Right. I love that. Yes.
So
yes,
in our entire lives, from birth to demise, we are imbibing things.
Right.
We are the things we see. We are the people that are around us. We are what people pour into us. We are what we allow once we get older for people to do to us. But that all affects the one thing this is the one thing that they don't know very much about, and it's hard to fix once it turns left or turns right. Right.
Right.
And so, as an adult, if you're watching this, it's okay to put yourself first.
Yeah.
And say,
I love that.
This is toxic, and I can't have any toxicity inside of me because I am what I eat. You know, this relationship is toxic. This friendship is toxic. This job is toxic. My family is toxic. I need to remove myself, My church is toxic. I need to go find something better, All those things, because at the end of the day, you can't turn back the hands of time when it comes to what's going to happen to your mind.
I love that.
It's just the truth, man. And I love the fact that doctor told you it's okay to say that you're sick. It's a sickness.
Yeah, she's like, you're sick. She said, I'm quite sure you do a lot for people. You do everything else. And that's what she went through. She said, listen, most of the people who I talk to and I treat are doctors and professional athletes and scientists and motivational speakers. She said, typically people with some of the largest stages, she said they suffer the most.
Yeah.
And she said, so I don't want you to assume that and then that just started a whole new journey for me about vulnerability and about, really just reconnecting with myself. And interesting enough, we're actually gonna be talking about that on the next podcast. So, but y'all, first off, I want to thank you for coming through, sharing your story.
Absolutely. And
also sharing information with the people. Everybody, make sure that you go, make sure you subscribe if you have not already. We have some other podcasts down below. Make sure that you pop in, you listen in. Man, I love y'all. Stay up. God got us. We're going to get through this. And as always, introduces. I'm out. I love y'all. Thank you.